Kristen, as the Oval Office Q&A continues, what are you reading from pool notes?
That's right, Andrea. There's a little bit more breaking news. You mentioned some of it, the fact that President Trump is going to work with the airline industry to try to make sure that people are tested before they get onto airplanes. But he's also just announcing that he's going to sign an executive order that will deal with the meat supply and concerns about the food chain. And of course, this comes on the heels of Tyson expressing concerns about a break in the food supply chain. So no details specifically on when he's going to sign that executive order, but clearly trying to take some type of action to prevent any type of significant break there, Andrea. This has been on the minds of people all across the country and, of course, farmers as well. So we'll look to see if he provides any more details about that.
And one of the other things, Kristen, that is really politically important to know about for Florida is that Florida has been one of the slowest states to respond to unemployment compensation claims. Something like nearly half the people who have tried to apply have not been able to apply. There's a real breakdown in the system there. There are some allegations that it started before this governor, when Rick Scott was governor, because the state was trying to save money in the budget. But there's a lot of backlog on people getting the help that they're supposed to get under the law.
That's right. When you look at a state like Florida, that's certainly one of the issues that the Florida governor is dealing with and that he's being pressed on. And we know that, that comes against the backdrop of the president, of course, and Congress passing that new aid for small businesses. And the president's going to be holding an event about that a little bit later on today in the Rose Garden. But a number of small businesses saying that they have been having trouble getting on the website. So the administration trying to deal with some of those glitches at the federal level, as of course you mentioned, Florida's governor dealing with the unemployment issues there at the state level, Andrea.
And Jeremy Bash, before we get the tape from the Oval Office, I just want to ask you about a rather confusing, ambiguous statement from the president yesterday about Kim Jong-un. For more than a week, there have been concerns. He didn't show up on April 15th at an important date, Founders Day, his grandfather's birthday.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.